We are back. Hello. It is
Hello, everybody.
What? Hey, this is a professional intro, bro.
Yeah.
You're killing me here.
Well,
No, somebody said something. I'm just making fun of y'all.
we try to be professional when at all possible.
It is episode 115 of the Metal Roundtable. I am Metal Rob. With me, as always, is the great Carcass John, and always with us is the great. He's right down there.
Scott Raging Waters.
Scooter Waters is in the house.
I am after a 2-week absence.
Is it been 2
Yeah,
weeks?
yeah, indeed.
I was at
Disneyland,
rather.
Oh, that's right.
I was at Disneyland, then we took a week off for Thanksgiving, and now we're back.
We are back.
Yeah, that was everyone have a filling Thanksgiving.
I did. I was up in the mountains in Arizona, up in Williams. We had a blast. We cooked a ton of food for a lot of people. I spent the whole day with my family, but a lot of people I didn't know. But we still had a great time together, just chatting with people and eating lots of food. And everybody brought different dishes, so I had stuff that we don't normally have for Thanksgiving, which was kind of neat.
Yeah.
We had smoked turkey.
Oh, yeah, I've got a guy at the office that does that. It's pretty awesome. That and a deep fried turkey. Welcome to Texas, right? Where everything's smoked or deep fried.
That's right.
Yeah, the smoked turkey was awesome.
Man,
Did
we
anybody-
had on Thursday at my in-laws, we had something that I have not had. Maybe not since my 20s. We had a nice brisket roast and mashed potatoes and gravy and all that. It's still traditional, but it wasn't turkey and dressing, so I loved it. I was thrilled to death.
I didn't get near enough turkey, so I'm gonna go get me a couple of turkey breasts and do them up myself. Anyway.
Nice. We went mildly non-traditional, but it was great. And then I met my kids one night. The only time we could get together because they were both working was the Tuesday before. So we met up at a Chinese food place.
Oh man.
And it was delicious.
I'll bet. Did anyone participate in any of the Black Friday record store day stuff?
No, I didn't partake in it because I don't live there. Besides the fact that I was in the middle of the wilderness in Arizona.
Oh,
But-
that's right.
But I did have some friends pick up because I couldn't miss out on the Aerosmith one.
Yeah, I actually I couldn't find one here. Anyway, I had the poser pick me up a copy. I've actually heard that it was a special import pressing at something that our friend the Hammer had, and but he only had one copy of it, and he kept that for himself, as I recall. So it's going to be cool to have that. That's an interesting historical piece of music there. So
Yeah, I did. I have the vinyl coming in the mail, but I did manage to. I don't know how well that's going to come out, but
Yep.
there's the cassette version of it.
I got both the vinyl and the cassette. But anyway, any shout outs? How about you, Mr. Delirium? I mean, Rob.
So in my quest for new music and interesting things, Scott sent me a link recently. Oh, good. Our guest is here. So let's go through this quickly and not keep him waiting. A little off the beaten path, different kind of metal. Scott sent me a link to a video by a band called The Last Vinci, and they want to be on the show. And so I've usually you go around singing the vocal melody of a song that's stuck in your head. Well, this one I'm going around going because I've got the riff stuck in my head. So
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, what's your quick shout outs, and then let's get to our guest.
Well, I want to shout out Steve Murphy, formerly of Rotting Corpse and Eldritch Wright, and he's got a little post-punk skater type band called the Nowhere Jets. It's kind of a rockabilly meets punk meets surf, things. It's really cool. Shout out to him. He's been playing a lot of shows. I just finished the album cover. And shout out to CD Warehouse, one of the few places in town in all of DFW in a market of nearly 8 million people that sell HAVOK records. And Panther City has a really cool tribute and to Riley Gales of Power Trip. It's a vinyl that's a special color, and all the proceeds go to his family and his foundation. So if you get into Dallas Fort Worth area and trip on by Panther City and pick one of those up, they're like $18. It's pretty reasonable, and it's a release that's already been out, but still kind of a cool thing that they're helping out the family amidst that tragedy. So what do we got?
Cool.
I got one quick shout out too, and then we'll get going. First, I went to see Ravens. I told you guys about, but man, I got some great photos that I got printed up.
Oh wow, those are cool.
This one, I mean, these things just came out phenomenal. I mean, I'm getting a glare from my thing, but look at this one. Horrible glare, sorry. And then one more. Look at that.
Oh yeah, I dig it.
So, but besides that, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Monkey Butt, who is running the show today. Glad to have him back. Glad he's doing well. Hopefully continues to do well.
Yes.
So I know some of our viewers have been asking there right up top there. Scotty Waters, who is not me, it's a different Scotty Waters, asked about Monkey Butt. So I just wanted to really quick let everybody know that he's there behind the scenes. There he is.
Hey, Monkey Butt.
I'm here.
There he is.
Doing good.
Thanks
for asking.
Well, we have a special guest today. Well, Monkey Butt's kind of a special guest. But we got a special guest today, and that was part of the reason why I gave CD Warehouse in Arlington, Texas, a shout out because they are one of the few places that actually sell HAVOK records. We have Dave Sanchez from HAVOK. There he is. Woohoo, David.
Yay.
Nice to meet you, man. Yeah, here we are. You're part of the Metal Roundtable now.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I think the last time I saw you was Black Dahlia Murder Tour at the Gas Monkey Bar and Grill, and it was cold.
It was 30 degrees and raining.
Yeah, and it was outdoors. So, and despite the fact that you were from Colorado, that's still pretty cold, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it sucks when you play outside and it's that cold because even if your hands are warm, your strings are made of metal and they're cold. So anytime you move on the fretboard, your fingertips are freezing.
Yep. Well, I remember Pete still had his shirt off playing drums back there. That was
maniac.
Yeah, he is a maniac. So talk to us. We're like a bunch of guys sitting around the table at the burrito shop talking about music, and we wanted to give you a forum to just do talk about whatever you want.
Well, you don't want me to talk about whatever I want, but I would like to say right off the bat that Monkey Butt is quite an amazing name.
Yeah. Well, there's a long story behind it, and he will have to tell you that at a later date, so we don't take up too much time. But anyway, do you have a nickname? They call me the Carcass. They call Rob Metal Rob, Scott Raging Waters. Do you have a nickname that you should now be known?
I don't really have a nickname. A lot of people call me Davey HAVOK, which is the singer of the band AFI.
Oh no!
But I don't think I'm easily confused with him. It's just a name thing.
Yeah, I gotcha. So I was doing a little investigating, and you guys put out your fifth record, your fifth full length, and then weren't able to tour on it. And so all this time that you've been and I'm not going to say you've been sitting around the house doing nothing because I know that you've been doing other things. But so what's been going on in this downtime where you're not able to tour?
Thinking about touring, wishing I could go out and play, but I think a lot of musicians are in that same boat right now. Something weird happened that canceled a lot of touring. We had the option of delaying the release of our record until we could go out on tour with it, but it was a giant question mark. And it was either put out the record on the day where we were planning, or put it out later, and it's a giant question mark, and we don't know when it's ever going to see the light of day. So we just moved forward with the original release date. And that day we were supposed to be starting a tour with Hatebreed. And then, obviously that got canceled along with everybody else's tours. So we're just kind of on standby waiting for things to get more normal. And then we can go and, do some things.
Well, I'm glad that you put it out, because fortunately I was an essential worker, so I still remained employed and outside the house doing things because I work outside. But it gave me a chance to reinvestigate, since I couldn't go to a show, I couldn't go to a store, I couldn't do these. It gave me a chance to investigate and listen to records and reacquaint myself with records that I hadn't listened to in a while, and especially that one. And I was struck by that one just because it's a little bit of a departure from the previous record, but the riffs are still there, man. You write great music and great riffs, and so explain. Talk about the transition from the previous records to that one in particular.
Well, first off, thanks for the kind words. It's all about the riffs. If we don't have like cool riffs, we don't have a song. It's just fucking around at that point.
Yeah.
And we don't like to fuck around.
No, Afterburner, you sure don't.
we do like to fuck around, but not when it comes to the music. So we try to drop the hammer when it comes to that stuff. But I think the biggest difference between V and the previous records is we made it a more conscious effort to have the two guitars being two guitars, and kind of having the band play different parts on all the stringed instruments to make it more like an orchestra would play something. You've got all these 3 different intertwining melodic lines mixing together and doing their own thing independently, but all working together harmoniously. That was a big focus on this recording. And, I think performance-wise and like execution of everything, I think this is the best we've ever done on a recording. I think that everybody was on their A game and everybody slammed their parts out of the park.
I wholeheartedly agree. I was shocked about how much usually some things take a few listings to sort of understand it and get it, but right out of the gates, that thing just was a crusher. And I thought, man, they've struck a nerve. I don't know if it was the production, and you do all the production, right? You do all the recording and production.
On the first 3 records and the Point of No Return EP, I did the production, but Conformicide and V, we went into a studio and worked with a producer to engineer them.
Well, you still have to play it, and it still sounds great. So, what are your plans for the future? It seems like you've had pretty much a 2-year layoff, right? Because I think I saw you in 2019.
That sounds about right. I think it was December of 2019. So right. Creeping up on 2 years exactly.
So, any thought to maybe throw out some new stuff?
We've talked about it. I think in a few months, it'll be about time to start writing some new stuff, or maybe learning some other people's music and figuring out how to twist those into HAVOK gear,
Sure.
That's something we've discussed, maybe doing some covers, but also I'd like to start writing some stuff in a few months.
Awesome.
I've got a question, Dave. Thank you for coming on the show, by the way. We're stoked to have you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Whenever COVID happened and everything got shut down and the tours all stopped and all that, I found that a great time to go and research bands and buy some merch online and discover some records that way. What happened with you guys on that front? Did people discover you by sitting at home, or did you find that it really hurt? Because like I said, I ordered so much shit when I was at home. So, and I'm just curious from the band side, what happens to you guys on that?
Well, touring is our bread and butter. That's where we make all of our money. So, our bank accounts dried up quickly from not being able to go out on the road. But, and I don't know if this is because we just put out a new record, or if this is because of what you're talking about, where people have time to check out records and listen to new bands. But like for Spotify, for instance, our monthly listeners on there nearly doubled and have pretty much stayed there since V came out. So I don't know if that's a matter of people being able to stay home and check out new bands, or if that's just because the album was well done and well received and people were sharing it with their friends and showing it to other people.
That's very interesting. So
I'm sure you're making a ton from that thing, right?
What's that?
I'm sure you're making a ton from that, right? All the hits on.
Oh yeah. The 0.006 cents on every listen.
That's
But I can say on that before Rob continues, I can say on that front, when I was working at an office, they would often play that digital crap, and they would play like Testament Radio or Exodus Radio, and HAVOK was always in the mix. So I'm sure that's how a lot of people were discovering you, because you could just pull up Testament Radio and HAVOK was ended up being played on there.
I like that. We're in good company on an Exodus and Testament list.
That's very cool. So this kind of piggybacks on what we were talking about, and you guys were talking about making your bread and butter on tour, and then the streaming is, just minuscule. But one of the things that we've talked about on the show so many times when we've had bands on especially is for people to hit the merch booth. Explain to everybody why, yes, they've bought a ticket. Yes, they came to the concert and they had 48 beers. But explain to them why a T-shirt and a CD is so important to you guys.
Well, we bought that stuff. We bought the product and we want to get rid of them. Otherwise, it just costs us more money to go on tour. But touring is not cheap. Gas is very expensive. Hotels are expensive. And, when you're driving 350 miles a day and you have to stay in a hotel, possibly get 2 hotel rooms, that adds up really fast over 30 dates. On top of, like, if you're renting a vehicle, if you're renting a trailer, if you're paying a crew, we normally run with like what we call a skeleton crew, just like bare minimum. We're not loaded. We don't have the funds to afford all kinds of people to bring out with us, but we normally travel with a merch seller, a sound guy, and that's what we would consider a skeleton crew. On some of these tours where we rented a vehicle that had bunks in it for us to sleep, we hired a driver, and the driver would sleep in the daytime and drive us while we're sleeping, which was a huge deal for us to be able to like show up and we're waking up in the next city. We don't have to drive. That was a big deal. But that stuff all adds up and is very expensive. So when people buy a ticket and come to the show, that's all great. But often what we make from the show is just a guaranteed number. And often we don't get paid more than whatever that guarantee was. But if people come to our merch table and buy merchandise, not only are they promoting us by wearing T-shirts or having a patch on their jacket or whatever, but it really helps the bands stay on the road and be able to put a few dollars in their pocket when they get home from the tour. Merch sales is kind of the number one way that you can help support a band, because the guarantees often are only covering part of your expenses, especially like a handful of years ago before we were making decent money. We don't make amazing money still, but when we were first getting on national tours with big international touring bands, we were getting paid like $200 a day. That barely covered the gasoline to get to the show. So when people would buy T-shirts, that actually allowed us to put a few dollars in your pocket when we got home.
Buy a hamburger and a pair of jeans.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
That we ripped.
I heard you say early on when I asked that question, I heard you say that you paid for the merchandise. I am almost 52 years old, and I am for the first time right now hearing that a band pays for their merchandise. How do I not know that?
Yeah. How do you not know that? You were in a band.
we have to pay out of pocket for all the merch that's there at the table, you know, and it's a big expense up front before we leave. So the trick is to try to order only so much that you're going to be able to get rid of it all on tour.
Yeah, I guess the shirts and stickers and that kind of custom stuff I understand, but you're actually buying copies of your records to take too.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, we get them at a wholesale price from the label, but they charge us that, and I guess it kind of makes sense from their perspective that they know those products are sold, and they can do the accounting for that, and make
their manufacturing costs. They're covering that too.
Yeah.
So
sure, yeah, of course.
Hey, can we have a quote here from somebody you probably know. Vic Stone is listening.
Oh, awesome. What's up, Vic?
Vic said, Dave, you're a big old nerd and cute as hell.
You are too.
Vic is a buddy of mine. I wanted to also mention, I heard you say you run a skeleton crew. There you go. I've seen you guys 3 times. Twice I actually shared the stage with you, and all 3 times it helped you guys load in and reload back into your trailer when you played. 2 times in Albuquerque and once in Roswell.
Oh, hell yeah. Wait, we've never played in Roswell.
Roswell, or you played in New Mexico in another city now. It maybe not be in Roswell. Maybe it was
Farmington.
It was Gallup.
Gallup, yeah. Gallup and Albuquerque are the only towns we've played in New Mexico.
Yep, and then one time in California.
Damn, dude, you're moving around a lot.
The merch thing.
Well, I played in a band too for 20 years, so we played with you guys. The 2 of the times we played with you, that's why we always made it especially bands that were touring through our town when we were opening, we were like, let's help these guys out. So we always kind of help people load in and load out their equipment. So
that's really cool. I kind of do the same thing because I work at venues and I'm so used to just doing that. And from touring, so used to loading in and out. So like when I go see some friends play, I'll help them pack up their drums and load up the trailer at the end of the night.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a good way to be.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate you.
I have one more question, if I could ask it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know you guys go through bass players like Spinal Tap went through drummers. I'm sure there's a little green stain left on the stage. But on this particular record, I think the bass player that played on this record, whose name I've already forgotten, really changed your sound quite a bit as opposed to the ones that came before it and after it. Would you agree?
I think that, on literally all of the records other than the first one, there is some slap bass going on. And I'm a huge funk fan. I listen to a lot of funk. And bass is really important to me. And yeah, I think we've always had that stuff, but on that record specifically, the bass intensity knob got turned up a lot. Mm-hmm. And the bass player on that is Nick Shingelis. He also plays bass in Job for a Cowboy and Cephalic Carnage.
Oh, wow. I love both of those bands. Well, speaking of loading in and loading out, I remember when you were 21 and you played a show in Houston with Primal Fear.
Yes.
And I remember, you did it as a 3-piece. Well, I probably remember it better than you, but because
probably
you were celebrating quite a bit. But so on something like that, where you're sharing, the bus, what do you let those guys help you load in or load out? I don't really remember how that all worked, but I was there to see you, honestly, and Primal Fear was a bonus track. But you had lost your guitar player like right before you got on the bus and played that whole tour as a 3-piece.
Yeah, on that run, we weren't in a bus with Primal Fear. We did share a bus a couple years later with the English Dogs. But, we were operating as a trio on that tour because our guitar player had some issues and he bailed on day 1 of tour. So the whole first show of that run was in Denver, and we played all the songs with no solos, other than the ones that I already knew how to play.
But thank goodness you have riffs, because
right.
you couldn't really tell, because I had 2 buddies with me, and they were like, "These guys are so killer." and I knew that there weren't solos, and I just went with it and said, yeah, they're killer thrash band. What can I say? And you held it together. In fact, you even did Rain and Blood that night as a 3-piece.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that whole run was it was our second tour ever with Pete on drums, and after that first Denver show, we had to go to Kansas City, and it's a long drive to Kansas City.
mm-hmm.
And I was in the back seat of the van on the bench, and I had my headphones in, and I was like learning the guitar solos on the way to show number 2. So I'm not a lead guitar player. I don't ever consider myself one. I think I'm pretty good at playing riffs, but lead is not my forte. But I figured out decent enough how to play some of those solos on the way to show number 2, and I was able to
pull it off. Well, I would
pull it off somehow.
Yeah, you would have fooled me because I thought I thought you're more than a capable lead player too. But Reese Scruggs is an able-bodied replacement for if you need a lead guitar player. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's a fretboard wizard.
Yeah, he's awesome. So
is he also a pinball wizard?
Yeah,
I'm not sure about that, but he's definitely got balls.
and then Pete Weber, man, that guy is just insane. I mean, like I watched him play the double bass, and it's almost like it looks like he's playing effortlessly. You just watch his feet going. It's just effortless for him.
Yeah, speaking of double bass with Pete, I've played with a lot of different drummers, and I've never heard Pete mess up his double bass. A lot of drummers will like fall behind, their hands will be going one tempo and the feet will start dragging back and it'll get a little weird. I've never, ever heard that happen with Pete.
And I've seen like drummers who play live getting a double bass is great, but you get in the studio with a click track and then suddenly they can't keep the time.
Sure. Yeah, and Pete's a beast. I picked Pete and Reese on purpose.
That was not an accident.
Yeah.
No, it's not accidental that they're in the band.
We're not fucking around. We've already established this.
Right.
So we have to ask, anytime we get somebody on, it is the most cliche question in the history of music interviews, but please give us the Spinal Tap moment because we know it's happened. I know everybody knows that I'm going to punt that question out there, but we know some funny shit has happened. So please enlighten us.
The first thing that comes to mind is one time we were playing a show in Tennessee in a small town there called Clarksville. And in the middle of the show, our bass player at the time, Nick, just like leaves the stage and there's no bass being played. And all of us are looking at each other like we kept the song going, but we were all looking at each other like, what the fuck is going on? Where'd he go? And then he came back out. He was still gone for a while. So after the song was over, I had to like bullshit with the crowd, and I told a couple of terrible jokes. And we were just doing that, just scratching our head, like, what the fuck happened to Nick? He finally comes back, and he like grabs my shoulder. He's like, dude, I just had to shit so bad. I was gonna shit my pants if I didn't go. So we're just standing there playing a song, 2 guitars and drums, no bass, wondering what the hell's going on. He comes back 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, whatever. He's like, I had severe diarrhea. Like, I had to leave the stage. Otherwise, it would have been a really big problem.
Otherwise, it would have turned into a G.G. Allen show.
Nobody wants that.
Hey, somebody's asking, what are your influences? Like music influences, guitarists, whatever.
My musical influences vary so dramatically. It's hard to cover all of them in a short amount of time, but like this guy is one of them. Ludwig van Beethoven. I love classical music. Like I said, I love funk. The amount of classical composers and funk bands that I like are too numerous to name, but so I'll just go with genres. I obviously love thrash metal. I like a lot of death metal. I like punk rock, old hardcore music. I love gypsy jazz. I love old big band like swing jazz. I love flamenco, classical guitar. There's a lot of stuff going on that works its way into our sound, and a lot of people that listen to Havoc and enjoy it probably like funk and probably like jazz and classical music, but they just might not know that they do.
Yeah, my mother was a classically trained pianist and can also play any double reed instrument or any 4-string instrument.
Damn,
and
that's awesome.
I grew up on a lot of Beethoven, Priestian, La Jolla, Rachmaninoff, and it established a pretty solid musical foundation. But Rob knows I'm going to ask the question, and only because they live up near you right now.
Oh, Lord.
Osric Tentacles. Have you ever heard of Osric Tentacles?
What's the band?
Osric Tentacles.
No, I've never heard of them.
He lives up in, they live up, Ed Wynn, who's the guitarist and leader, live up in Colorado Springs area, somewhere between Colorado Springs and Denver. They're a UK band. You probably really dig them.
If you
anyway, he's a great guitarist.
If you like any kind of psycho prog rock, these guys are phenomenal.
Yeah, dude, I love prog rock. There's a lot of bands from the 70s and 80s that play prog, and it rubs off on me. It's not overt, but it definitely has an impact. Sure. Bands like Yes and Gentle Giant and Soft Machine. There's a lot of Zappa. There's a ton of really cool bands from the 70s. I think the 70s was like the coolest decade for music.
I agree.
Pop acts, even pop bands were fucking cool. Pop music today is horse shit, but in the 70s, pop music was pretty good.
Yeah. So I want to point out something. We have done 115 episodes, and I think that Carcass has mentioned Osric Tentacles on 114 of them. I just want to point that out.
They're the greatest band in the world, except for Havoc, of course.
And Oingo Boingo.
Well, they're pretty close. Okay. They're in the top 10.
If I'd have had a list of 100 bands that you were about to say, I would not have come up with Oingo Boingo.
Oh, dude, that's one of my favorite bands ever. Danny Elfman's vocals and his songwriting, his compositions are so interesting, and his vocal range is super impressive. The lyrics are good. A lot of them are very sarcastic and tongue-in-cheek, but the compositions are phenomenal. Oingo Boingo is one of my favorite bands and definitely one of my biggest songwriting influences.
So we've talked about songwriting influences and stuff like that. And one of the guys in the comments asked, you talked about maybe doing an EP or an album of covers. Who would you consider covering? Would you do something like Oingo Boingo, or are you going to stay in the thrash vein? Tell us about that.
Personally, I would like to do a reimagining of songs that are not metal. I would like to cover things like Oingo Boingo, Ted Nugent, CCR, AC/DC, Thin Lizzy, stuff like that.
Please do Thin Lizzy and Ted Nugent.
Please. That would be
two of my favorite bands ever.
But that's what I would like to do. If we were going to record a bunch of cover songs, I would not want to do a bunch of shit people would expect us to do. Well, now people are going to expect us to do that kind of stuff.
Dang it. We ruined the surprise.
That's right. Oingo Boingo cover and Osric Tentacle cover.
Dead Man's Party by Havoc.
I'm going to scroll through some of the comments and see.
I always thought Back in the Saddle by Aerosmith would be a cool song to take and make a thrash song.
Oh, yeah. The vocals are perfect for it.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, so here's randomness. So Vic is watching. Why do I know that name?
Vindicator.
Vindicator Vic. Dude, speaking of
how do you not know that name? You mastered their last album.
That's it.
Dude, Vic is a riff machine. That dude writes some of the sickest riffs.
Matter of fact, since we're talking about it, here's their new album.
Rad.
Just came out. And I'm hoping it's going to come out on vinyl soon too. So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
And then also they just released the demolished Thrash and Demolished CD of all their early demos and stuff.
That's it. That's it. Thank
With
you.
some great cover
for
art too, by
embarrassing
the
me
way.
live on the air. Somebody that I worked on their music. Yeah, I win.
But what was Vic's question?
He didn't have a question. I was trying to figure out who he was because I recognized the name. But I'm
Vic Stone, baby.
But he says right there.
Represent.
He says right here he's rad as fuck. So
It's true.
I'm trying to scroll through and see if you've got a question for our distinguished guest, Mr. Dave, please post it up in the comments. I'm scrolling through to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Well, Vic says, I remember Dave calling me while we were tracking the antique witcheries and asking if I knew any lead players. So
that was before Reese Scruggs hit me up.
Yeah, lots of comments, no questions yet. So
yeah.
Anyhow, I'll get you on one. I bought because we played with you guys back in 2000.
You were in Ultimatum then?
When I was in Ultimatum, yeah, back in 2000, I can tell you exactly when it was. 2011 that's when I kind of found out about you guys because we shared the stage with you, and I bought I think it was your first album at the time. And now I lost my. There you are. You're back. Anyhow, eventually I picked it up when it came out on vinyl. I kind of thought this album had and I'm not claiming you're a clone, but I kind of a testament vibe to it. And
it was a huge influence back in the day, for sure. Early on, when I was a young teenager, I discovered. Well, I was already a huge Metallica fan and loved Megadeth and Slayer and Anthrax, but then I got turned on to bands like Testament, Exodus, Overkill, Violence, Forbidden, Uncle Slam, Suicidal Tendencies. By the way, Uncle Slam is probably my favorite thrash band that nobody knows about.
I know about them. I've got the tapes sitting over on the shelf. I love that band.
Kind of crossover sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't tell Mike Muir, but Uncle Slam to me sounds kind of like Suicidal, but I like Uncle Slam even better. And that's not a knock on Suicidal. I fucking love that band. But Uncle Slam really does it for me. Songwriting is killer, and their riffs are fucking awesome. And I love the way the guy sings.
Yeah, he kind of has that punk work ethic in his vocals.
Yeah, and I think he's like a Latin fellow and might have rolled with gangs down there in Southern California.
Might have. Yeah, I've actually seen them live, and they carry quite a crew with them when they. Yeah, I mean, you better get ready to rumble and bring your mouthpiece.
Dude, you saw Uncle Slam?
I used to trip out to see. I'm old, so I have the benefit of seeing a lot of the old cool bands. But back in the late '80s to like the '90s, I would at least roadie out to California at least 3 times a year. And it was usually just to hit up clubs and just I saw amazing. I saw a Believer at the Crystal Cathedral once. I've seen Mordred, DRI, Attack, all those types of Uncle Slam, Albatross, Fathom. Yeah, and I mean the Orange County scene was just like insane back then. Comatose was another band that was really killer. But anyway, and I have
old.
Yeah, I am old, and I have my brother-in-law, played in a band called Steel Fury, and they had tripped out to Cali back in it was right when my son was born, so it was '88. So anyway, yeah, I've been checking out that whole scene out there in SoCal for a long time, especially the OC thrash scene. Man, that was really, I didn't hang out at Gazzari's and the cat house at Ricky Rackman's cat house or whatever. Every now and then I was forced to attend a Tracy Gunn show or whatever, but no, it was thrash for me all the way.
Hey, you be careful when you talk about hair metal, Chief.
Hey, I'm trying to be judicious by the fact that Bang Tango is just not my thing, but Oingo Boingo. See, now that's the weirdness of how we like music. I mean, I like weird stuff too. We were just talking about it today. So anyway, yeah, I saw Uncle Slam twice.
That's rad. I love a lot of weird music. One of my favorite bands is Mr. Bungle. Their first album, I bought that when I was like, I don't know, 15, 16, and that record blew my mind into a million pieces. And it still does every time I listen to it.
Have you heard their new one? Have you heard their new one?
Yeah,
With
their
Lombardo and
new
Scotty?
old one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
their
it's
new
a
old
new
one.
recording of all their old stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Scott Ian on it and Dave Lombardo playing drums.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. But
kinda
I prefer the Bungle that has horns and is really weird and has genre changes on a dime.
Right.
That's my favorite Bungle.
Yeah, then you love the Ozric Tentacles. Yeah, my brother-in-law Terry Sullivan says that that Steel Fury opened for DRI once down there, so in SoCal. So anyway, fond memories of that whole scene. But Denver's got kind of a speaking of scenes, Denver's got a killer heavy scene. Like got bands like Cloudcatcher and I can't remember the name of that other band, but Cloudcatcher is one that I've actually seen multiple times. But Axe Slayer and
Axe Slasher.
So who are some of the other speed demons that are up from that area?
Well, speaking of speed, there was a band. They're not around anymore, but Speed Wolf.
Oh yeah. We interviewed their bass player. He's in a band called Overdose, New York.
Yeah,
he was in Speed Wolf.
I think the singer was in Overdose. I didn't know the bass player was in that band too.
Or maybe it is the singer, Rob
Reed.
Yeah,
no,
Reed.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I actually played in a band with Reed way back in the day. This is like right when HAVOK first started out. Their guitar player couldn't do a tour that they had booked. So they asked me to learn like 18 songs in like 10 days or something. And they were like, "Can you do it?" Like, I think so. And that was the first time I ever went on tour.
Wow.
I think I was 16, maybe 17 years old, and hit the road for the very first time, filling in for a band called DDC, Death, Destruction, and Chaos.
Uh-huh.
And that DDC tour was my introduction to life on the road and touring and getting acquainted with that whole gig. But I had a really good time, and that band was really cool. They were like an awesome thrash punk crossover band from Denver, and Reed from Speed Wolf and Overdose was the singer.
Yeah.
Reed's a cool dude. I saw them open for Lucifer here in Dallas right before COVID happened.
They played
And they
right
were
before
fantastic.
the Devil.
Yeah, right
before the devil. Yep.
Right before
And
the
she's
Devil,
really
yes,
cute,
that's
by
right.
the way.
Hey, Monkey Butt, can you put TJ Lewis's question up for Dave, please?
The Scoot Inn in Austin. I've been wanting to see Children of Bodom since I was 13. What was it like touring with Alexi? R.I.P. Touring with Bodom was awesome. We did the Megadeth run, and they were on that with us. It was Megadeth, Suicidal Tendencies, Children of Bodom, and HAVOK. And all of the off days for the Megadeth run, we usually had a show with Children of Bodom. And so we got to know those guys pretty well on that run. They were the first people we met from the tour because we had a couple shows with them before we linked up with Megadeth. And touring with Alexi, honestly, he was like not drinking. He was not partying and hanging out with people much. So he was fairly reclusive, and we didn't really hang out with him all that much. I think he was seemed to me, I can't really speak for him, but it seemed to me like he was trying intentionally to distance himself from other people that were hanging out and having beers and doing shots and stuff because he didn't want to get sucked into that vortex, which is totally fine and respectable. But we didn't like get to hang out with Alexi Laiho that much. He largely kept to himself, but he was never an asshole or anything like that. He was always very pleasant and kind. And one time we ended a tour in Helsinki, Finland, and played the Tuska Open Air Festival. And they had me learn their cover of Riders on the Storm and I got to literally play Alexi Lejo's guitar and play guitar in Children of Bodom for one song.
Wow.
And when that tour was over, we decided to stay in Helsinki for a few days. So we were cool with the Bodom guys, and they were really generous and let us stay in their warehouse where they kept all of their equipment and their cars and some of their stage props and stuff like that. And they let us stay in that spot. It had couches and a couple beds and stuff. So we were just crashing there, but that's where they like recorded their last couple albums, and they rehearse in there. But there was like a kitchen, there was a bathroom. It was all good. And one time we needed to go rent a car. They threw like a barbecue for us there. We all like grilled food and hung out, and a lot of the guys were there. Alexi was not there during that time, but I think it was the next day we needed to go rent a car. So Alexi came by and he took me and Nick to the airport in Helsinki to go rent a car. He took us there in his like old 70s muscle car. I think it might have been like a Chevy Nova or something. Or no, it was a Monte Carlo. He had an old 70s Monte Carlo, and he loaded us into his car and he took us to the airport. So that was one of the coolest things that I got to do with the guy. We got to hang out in Alexi's Monte Carlo and have him drive us to the airport.
That's cool. That is very cool.
Hey, Gary I says he's asked this twice. Any Blue Oyster Cult stories? He thinks they're the greatest American band.
Well, Blue Oyster Cult, I actually had dinner with the two of the guitar players. I had dinner with them. I'm a PV artist, PV amplifiers. I use their stuff, and the Blue Oyster Cult guys are PV artists as well. So the PV people took us, some of the artists, out to dinner one time, and I got to hang out with Buck. I can't remember his last name. Buck Dharma.
Buck Dharma,
and I can't remember the other guitar player's name.
Eric Bloom.
Eric Bloom? Eric Bloom? That wasn't it?
Has Eric Bloom been in it for a long time?
Yeah, he's the singer, the original lead singer.
That may be him then, because these dudes are both quite elderly gentlemen, and dude, they were around
my age, Dave. So be careful.
No, they're. I don't think they're your age.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Those guys are getting up there. Well, sorry, John.
No, that's okay.
They've got John beat by a decade at least.
You think they're in their 70s?
Yes.
I got to eat sushi with those guys from Blue Oyster Cult. I love that band. It's a band I've never gotten to see live that I would love to go see. Like, what was it? Lights, Cities Aflame with Rock and Roll.
Yeah.
That riff. Super epic. I really love that song, Dominance and Submission.
Oh, yeah.
That's a fucking cool song.
Yep.
You know, the odd thing is it had been since I was in college. So 81, 82, I saw him at the Salt Palace for the first time. And then hadn't seen them since. And then magically they appear in Dallas Fort Worth area, like what, 3 times within 6 months? We saw him at the Gas Monkey Live, and we saw him at some other. It was just like they were popping up left and right. And in fact, Rob was telling the story that they were at some 4th of July parade thing out in McKinney, Texas, or something. So weird.
Dude, I saw Blue Oyster Cult for the first time from about 10 feet away play on a park pavilion. I can't imagine what you have to pay to get Blue Oyster Cult to come play on your park pavilion. But they have this thing called Hot Summer Nights, and they get they'll usually get a bigger band like that, and then they have some cover bands and different stuff throughout the summer. But
yeah,
Blue Oyster Cult, man, on a park pavilion, it was awesome. And then all of a sudden, I've seen them 4 times in a couple of years.
That rules.
Yeah, they're here all the time now, it seems like.
So come on down, Dave.
Fraser Dawn
is playing. Let me know.
Yep. Fraser Dawn has asked this question like 3 times. He wants to know, how was Dave Mustaine? Was he cool or was he an a-hole?
when we were on tour with Megadeth, he was cool as fuck. He often would hand me a bag of marijuana or be like, "Hey, come into this room," and he'd like give me a bottle of liquor and be like, "Here, drink some of this and let's smoke weed." Like, okay. He gave me some good advice on that tour. He was always Megadeth treated us very well on that tour. We ate like kings. We would often get a free bottle of wine or liquor or whatever. You know, when you're packing up to leave the venue, often there's a lot of food left over, or if the band doesn't drink that much, there's a lot of liquor sitting there or whatever. There was multiple times where Mustaine was like, "Hey, we're about to leave, and there's like 2 bottles of tequila in there, and we're not going to drink them. You guys should take them." Yes, sir, Mr. Mustaine, sir.
Hey, Rob, you're right. You're right. The Buck Dharma and Eric Bloom have me by a decade. They're in their mid-70s.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You're not that old, buddy.
I only feel that way sometimes. So, but I remember when Dave was 21.
Oh, yes. I remember part of that.
I remember. Yeah. In fact, I still got the drum head that you signed. It was pretty cool. That was
Did I
an
barf
epic
on
night.
it?
No, you barfed in the trash can next to the merch table.
Yeah, I remember the show was over and people were leaving and walking out of the venue, and I was just like sitting right next to the merch booth while people are walking out, going like, "Good show, dude."
Yeah.
Show,
I don't have a drum head, but I do have the guitar pick you gave me.
Oh, nice. It's an old one, out of print.
It's pretty abused here. You can't even see the logo on the other side because you were playing with it. But anyhow, yeah, it was on. That was on this tour.
So do you collect music, or do you just listen to music and hear music, or do you have a collection of odds and ends? Or
I've got some vinyl. I've got quite a few CDs. At some point, I might want to sell some of my CDs, except the prized possessions.
I'm your guy.
RTC music, baby.
I got a couple CDs too.
Yeah,
I can see that.
we all have a little more than we should. But when I bought my first record at age 13, and that was 50 years ago. So
what was the record?
Black Sabbath, Paranoid. And the second record I bought was Grand Funk, the Red Album. Then I bought Aerosmith, Get Your Wing. I still have them. You're welcome to come by anytime, and we'll go hang out and listen to records upstairs, because I love 70s classic rock. And amongst the other eclectic things, like some of the bands you've mentioned, like Zappa and Oingo Boingo and so forth. Uncle Slam. Devo. Yeah, freedom of choice, man. It's what we want.
I'm trying to find you on Facebook so I can drive to Denver and get those CDs.
I know where I know we got to go in a second.
Out of storage. I got some of them in a box.
Have any of you guys heard this yet?
I've heard a few songs off of it. I need to listen to the full thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty heavy. One of the things I think I dislike about modern music, as opposed to when thrash was being recorded in the 80s and the 90s, is the fact that a lot of it sounds samey. Not necessarily the writing, but the productions are all like so pristine now. They lack the charisma that a lot of the bands had back in the day. Even if it was bad production, it was like this. This doesn't have great production, but I mean the bad production that kind of added to the appeal. You know,
production varied so much more back in the day.
Yeah, whereas now it's like everybody's got the same guitar tone, that same buzz guitar tone. But anyhow, regardless, I still think this is a fantastic album. But
I need to listen to the full thing. Jack Gibson actually helped us do backup vocals on our last HAVOK record.
Oh, right on.
He's on the gang vocals on a lot of those songs.
Huh. That's a good bass player. You could have him tag along.
Yeah.
Hey,
TJ Lewis.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, TJ Lewis is asking, what's your favorite newer thrash band of the last couple of years? Anybody
newer thrash band?
Anybody like Trip Your Trigger? When you saw them, you went, wow, those guys are killer.
I mean, they're not the last couple of years, but the one that newer band that threw me for a loop when I saw them the first time was Vector.
Yeah, I've known those guys. I think they started in the same time that we did. Actually, I played with Vector for the very first time before HAVOK ever did its first tour. That tour that I did with DDC, we played on a Native American reservation, and Vector also played. And I remember there was underage drinking and maniacs there, and people like basically starting a circle pit in the desert and just kicking up tons of sand. I can still taste the sand.
I laugh because I've been there and done that. So that would be one of my Spinal Tap stories, is playing on the Indian reservations. So it's definitely a different scene than playing in the clubs and playing on those Indian reservations.
Yeah, it's interesting. We played with Vector though forever ago, before HAVOK ever toured. I like Vector a lot. I know it's not new, but the last band that like is immediately coming to my mind, I'm sure I'll think of something later, but Power Trip was one of the last bands where we were in the UK and we were setting up like right after load in. We loaded in, we're unlidding like our amps and opening our guitar cases and stuff, and this music is playing on the PA just while we're setting up. And I looked at the sound guy. I was like, because song after song had cool riffs in it. I was like, this is pretty rad. Who is this? Sound guy, who is this? He's like, oh, it's this band called Power Trip. I was like, I've never fucking heard of them. And I looked them up and loved it. It must have been right when that first record came out, because this was me being exposed to them happened way before everybody else caught on. Like, I was telling people about Power Trip for the longest time. Obviously, a lot of people know who they are now, but that was the last recent-ish band where I remember my ears perking up with house music playing.
Yeah, they were around for like 8 to 10 years, and before anybody had really actually heard of them. I mean, they're local. They're from Denton and North Dallas.
Yeah.
And they have, all those guys have tons and tons of other projects, ANS and Mammoth Grinder and all these things, and so they were always busy. But man, to your point, when I first heard those riffs, I thought, man, who in the world is this? There's hope for metal after all. You know what I mean? There's more than one band.
Which guy in Power Trip is also in ANS?
I thought it was the drummer or the guitarist. But
okay. Yeah, I don't know, but I remember ANS from way back in the day.
Because speaking of
DDC, they knew those guys and they showed them to me.
Yeah, in fact, speaking of ANS, I booked them one time at a practice facility called the Alamo down in South Fort Worth, and Vector was one of we had a Vector and a couple of local bands, Amoricide and some other, and everyone just, ANS started the show because they had to leave and go to school or something. They had classes, so they played right, and they tore our heads off. And the sandwich between Vector and ANS was everybody else, and we were completely blown away by ANS and completely blown away by Vector. But for $10, and it was it was a wild show. There must have been 100 people there. One light bulb over the stage. It was very, very DIY, very basement-like.
Those shows are the best, man.
Yeah.
I saw Kill Slug in New Hampshire with one light bulb hanging over the drummer. You couldn't tell what was going on in there. It was just this grindy, nasty, just Kill Slug. Wow, that was crazy. Hey, we're going to wrap it up with one last question, Dave, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to get anybody pregnant, so let's wrap it up.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, we appreciate that. So Frazier, one of our longtime listeners, wants to know what band that you want to play with that you haven't played with yet. And by the way, Eric Bloom will be 77 tomorrow.
Happy birthday, Eric Bloom.
Oh, and
I'm
by
sure
the way,
you're listening right now.
TJ Lewis said it's not a member of Power Trip that's in ANS. It's the guitar player of Mammoth Grinder. My bad.
Ah, okay.
He's in Iron Reagan now, I think. Another cool band.
Yes, sir.
But
Here's
anyway,
Fraser's question on the screen. This is my question. What band would you like to play with you haven't played with yet?
That one's easy. Metallica.
oh wow,
We've played with all of the big four except for them. We've toured with Overkill. We've toured with Death Angel, Megadeth, Anthrax. Like we've toured with Toxic Holocaust and the English Dogs, and all of these bands we've toured with or played festivals with or played shows with, but never played a show with Metallica. That's the number one for sure.
well that would be the one way to get me to a Metallica show is have HAVOK open for them because I'm still suffering from the first the look. They earned a lot of respect on the first three records, so I give them all the credit in the world. But their more recent stuff is just I'd rather listen to HAVOK, quite frankly, and that's not just because Dave Sanchez is on with us. That's the truth.
I'm going to use that quote that's going to be on our next album cover. All the respect to Metallica, but I'd rather listen to HAVOK.
There you go.
I like it.
You can quote me on that every day of the week. It's true.
That's awesome.
Right on.
Hey man, we're gonna wrap it up and let Monkey Butt go on about his day, but we always wrap up the show. First of all, Dave, I was down in Colorado Springs this summer, and if I had even sniffed a music collection, I would have been on your doorstep in about what would have taken me an hour to get up there. I don't know, but
next time you're in town, let me know. I can pass you along my email or whatever.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But we like to close out the show every time by saying metal will prevail. And we're going to do that now. Give us your plugs, though, real quick. Plug your website, podcast, plug all that stuff real quick before we sign off.
Yeah, if anybody wants to follow HAVOK, just make sure you look it up HAVOK because we went to public schools. So we spelled it wrong. But HAVOK, you can look it up. HAVOK.band is our website, and all the links to all the social media and the merch store and stuff are there. And I also run a podcast called Riffs or Die. And there's also a web store. So if you have any interest in getting a t-shirt that says Riffs or Die with some skeletons on it, or I also sell No Karate in the Pit shirts on there. If any of that sounds interesting, go to riffsordie.com. And all my podcast episodes are up there too.
Awesome. Cool. Well, man, thank you so much for coming on. We know you're a busy man, and we very, very much appreciate it. Carcass hit me up and was like, dude, Dave's coming on. He was like a giddy little schoolgirl, man. So
yeah, I'm stoked to do it. Let's do it again sometime. He wanted to get me on forever, but the schedule just never worked. But this time I was like, the planets have aligned, sir. Let's do it.
Yay!
Yeah, it's awesome. And obviously, if you come to Dallas, man, let's just blow it up with an interview or hang out or whatever, man. It'd be good to meet you.
It sounds good.
All right, well, here we go. It's Metal Horns. Metal will prevail. Until next time, for episode 115 of the Metal Roundtable, I'm Metal Rob signing off for Carcass John and Scott Raging Waters. And today, Dave from HAVOK. Thanks again so much. Until next time, Metal
will prevail.
Prevail. And there.